Forget about ISIS and the Taliban. The real enemy is within. In a brilliant exclusive courtesy of Steve Edgington and Gordon Rayner at The Telegraph, the civil service is becoming institutionally woke. The country's top civil servant, Simon Case, was told in a letter signed by 42 staff from 16 departments that ideology on gender promoted by trans activists has become embedded in the civil service in a significant breach of impartiality. It says the concept that everyone has a gender identity which is more important than their sex is now treated as undisputed fact. Staff who believe there are two biological sexes that cannot be changed suffer serious harassment at work and live with a pervasive fear that they'll be victimised. This is on top of the very disputed concept of critical race theory, which says that you are racist based upon the colour of your skin. Critical race theory also believes in segregation of ethnic groups and is the philosophical opposite of Martin Luther King and his aspirations for a colourblind society. And the extraordinarily divisive concept of so-called white privilege, which says that if you're white, you are racist, even if you don't know it, or that you're an oppressor, is again being preached in the civil service as fact. Many of these ideologies are taught via expensive courses that civil servants have to go on, taking them away from their actual duties for which they're paid, which is to implement government policy. Those were the days when that's what they did. But it seems many civil servants are now far too busy watching videos that say men are women and that the majority of people in this country are xenophobic bigots. Let me tell you what this crazy worldview leads to. An academic who has criticised the teaching of white privilege in schools has been no-platformed from an education conference over claims that she would make other speakers feel unsafe. Dr. Alka Segal-Cuthbert, who, let's be honest, is an unlikely candidate for white privilege, was told her panel discussion at the Rethinking Education Conference had been cancelled following complaints from speakers and delegates. Dr. Cuthbert, director of Don't Divide Us, an ethnically diverse campaign group which challenges the idea that Britain is systemically racist, had been invited to speak on a panel about indoctrination within education and how we avoid it. Good luck with that. And here's the kicker. We understand Dr. Cuthbert, who's been cancelled, was the only woman of colour on the panel from which she has now been uninvited. And they're worried about racism. You couldn't make it up. This crazy story demonstrates why the ideological capture of the civil service is a major threat to this country. A man who has heroically battled the civil service, including trying to get them back into the office after the pandemic, is my colleague and friend, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Here's what he had to say on the matter. Rees-Mogg said a woke culture has entered the soul of the civil service. This is wrapped up in the buzzwords of diversity and inclusion, which ironically seek to exclude and marginalise those who do not subscribe to politically correct views. He goes on, the civil service is increasingly committed to acting independently of ministers and ultimately the voters they're responsible to. It is completely unacceptable, he says, that it's been politicised in this way and represents a major drag on government resources that should be focused on delivering for the public. The obstruction and wokery cannot continue. He says it is designed quite simply to stop democracy working. Damning words. And I wouldn't mind, but these are state employees. This is not a private company. You're paying for this divisive crap. The civil service needs a complete overhaul and needs to ditch the politics and ditch the ideology. Right now, the civil service has got a mind of its own. It's out of control. Forget about white privilege. They've got Whitehall privilege. So it's time to take back control, put the genie back in the bottle. The increasingly woke civil service is doing a disservice to this country.